Hello, everybody. Welcome to StraightA. Dawson here.
Nathan here.
Look at that, on beat with no lag time for this one. The boys are back here. Ben and Drayton are back in this video for our free agency series. So we're going to be going over all the free agency moves for all the NFL teams going forward. We're going into this next NFL draft. We have a couple weeks before the NFL draft, but we figured we'd just go pick it up, see what happens, and grade them now. There's still a lot of cool free agents out there. Justin Simmons is a notable one. I think I saw a couple others here, just like David Bakhtiari, J.C. Jackson, couple other small guys. Eddie Jackson's also a good one. People like that. But for the most part, free agency craze is over. Most teams have found they're pretty much solid team members. So we'll kind of review each of the teams, and this will be a series. Today will be the AFC North, and we'll go from there and see how this all goes for the NFL teams. Before we get started, though, guys, please leave a like down below, comment any suggestions for the channel, and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. All right, so with the AFC North, we have a few things to go over. There is of course, the Ravens, the Browns. This is probably one of the most competitive divisions in football, and they made some big moves here, especially with the team we're going to start off with here today. And we're going to be taking grades of each of these teams from A to F, with B and D being B plus, D minus. So we're going to be flexible with our grades a little bit, but let me kind of get the screen ready to go to share, and that should be Gucci. So we're gonna start off with the biggest team probably in talks conversations, besides maybe the Eagles. The Baltimore Ravens from the AFC North. They picked up Josh Johnson, quarterback, whatever, nothing. Running back Derrick Henry, Nelson Aguilar, Josh Jones, Justin Matabuke, Brent Urban, Chris Board, Malik Harrison, and Arthur Mullet. The only big notable, or I shouldn't say the only, the biggest notable name there is Derrick Henry, who's going to completely change up that offense for the Ravens. But otherwise, I mean, they have a couple decent little fill in the blanks for a lot of these teams. I know the D line needed Justin Matabuke. For the different people they lost, because they lost a few of their defensive players, their linebackers and stuff like that. And this is kind of a list. I'm not going to read all of these. A list of all the players they've lost. Odell Beckham Jr. is one of the notable ones. J.K. Dobbins, but they have a pretty good running back room. Patrick Queen, another pretty big one. But for the most part, they retained a lot of their star players, so it looks like they're going in pretty all right going into next season. But what's some initial thoughts from you guys?
I mean, it's
I
just
think, oh,
pretty
go
off,
ahead.
pretty off and quiet. I mean, they did sign Derek, which is like the biggest addition. I think that was kind of where everyone expected him to go. Um, Other than that, I mean, it's been pretty moderate. They retained some good talent on defense. Getting Aguilar is a good piece. Not exactly something that you would expect him to add a lot on the field, but definitely off the field. Leadership, teaching some of the younger guys at the receiver position to come up a little better. I would say that's a pretty good ad.
Obviously, the big one is Derrick Henry. I mean, like you said, it's going to completely change. I would say completely change their playbook, but to have that consistent downhill running back that they've been kind of missing because they would bounce between two, three, sometimes four running backs a season, and just between injuries and stuff, and have that consistency that Derrick Henry brought to the Titans for all those years he was there. But the big hole I see, and I think they'll probably draft something to help this, is Nelson Aguilar. I mean, he's never been a standout guy. He was taken in the first round ahead of Justin Jefferson, which the Vikings were happy about. But they're losing Odell Beckham, who was a big producer in yardage last year, and so I don't think Nelson Aguilar is going to replace that. But I definitely think they will draft a wide receiver, maybe not in the first round, but in the second round, probably. A top, a good first 2 round, first night draft night guy. Maybe wide receiver will fall to them in the second round. Who knows? Maybe they'll trade up in the second round. And then the third point is their D line. They beefed up their D line. They re-signed some guys, especially on their whole defense. And I think that's important to bring back that good Baltimore secondary they had last year.
Mm. Yeah, I kind of agree here, and honestly, though, kind of going with the cons a little bit. We talked a lot about the good stuff because I think D line, especially signing some guys and re-signing some guys for that D line is going to help them out a lot. The offense got better. One notable thing that just didn't wow me, and it's just something I really critiqued the Ravens last year on, is their secondary. Losing Geno Stone is a big hit, and I'm sure they can replace it. It's not like it's It's not like detrimental or anything. It's not like I'm like, oh, boom, you're done for. It's just that your secondary got worse, and it was the biggest problem for them last year, defensive wise. So I worry about that. But granted, if you only have one hole, it's easy to also solidify the Josh Jones pick up for the free agency deal. That'll help their O line a little bit, or just keep their O line up. So their O line really didn't get worse or better. I guess maybe it could have gotten slightly worse technically. Don't even know exactly who they lost for that. Morgan Moses, I guess, but Kevin Zilter. But those are mostly guards and tackles. So I think overall they're still very solid. I think they've only improved the second. They still have a whole draft, and if their secondary is the only glaring issue I see, or the thing that I think they can improve, I think that's pretty good going to the draft. Personally, I'm going to give – I don't think there's many teams that deserve an A, but I feel like you have to give the Ravens an A for the Derrick Henry signing and retaining most of the talent they have, while only losing very few people. Geno Stone and Patrick Queen are the only two people I see that they really lost. I mean, Odell Beckham, sure you can say, but I don't see, like, Nelson Aguilar as a big step down because, like, he produces. Odell Beckham is spotty on whether he produces. So I think it's a give or take. I agree Odell Beckham's a upgrade, but – I don't think it's the biggest loss in the world. And the running back situations with J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards being gone, they now have Derrick Henry, Keaton Mitchell. They still have – no, they don't have Gus Edwards. I thought there was a third running back there. But they still have a good running back room either way. So I'm giving them an A, personally.
I wouldn't stray too far from that. I'd be more leaning of a B plus, just because their secondary, they haven't really improved it much. And that wide receiver loss of Odell Beckham, but it's definitely still a high grade, so probably B plus for me.
I'm probably gonna give them a B minus. I mean, Henry was huge, but other than that, I mean, it would probably be a D if they hadn't. So yeah, that's where I'm gonna sit is B minus.
You know what? That's fair. Maybe putting too much stock in the running back is not the greatest. So I will amend mine to B plus. That's a valid point because they really didn't have any other big signings besides Derrick Henry. So, granted, and I put too much value into retaining a lot of their players. But beside the point. Either way, we'll go into the Bengals now. Now that we got our deal out of here for the Bengals. Kind of scroll down, give you a quick look about who they lost, who they gained. I will say, before we kind of go into who they gained, they did lose quite a few people. And granted, I'm also kind of expecting T. Higgins not to play for the Bengals, to be honest with you. I know it's still up in the air. But, I mean, Joe Mixon wasn't the greatest, but he's still a loss, I guess. Tyler Boyd, Irv Smith, DJ Reader, Wazui. I know he was pretty good. I don't know how to say his name. So it's a couple decent losses for that team, and granted, I do like who they picked up with Mike Gesicki. I like Mike Gesicki in that tight end position for Joe Burrow. Again, I don't think T. Higgins will stick around, but you can count T. Higgins here. Zach Moss, I'm too up in the air about Zach Moss, about how well he can be as a sole producer. And their offensive line, that is one credit I'll give them. They signed Trent Brown and they retained Cody Ford, which was probably the only bright spot for me on that offensive line last year. Other than that, Geno Stone. Oh, that's right. They were the ones who picked up Geno Stone in divisional, which is kind of cool. So I'm kind of up in the air here. So what do you guys thought?
I'm probably gonna go with a C because they did bring in some talent, but I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat that I don't really expect T. Higgins to be there. If they end up letting him go in a trade, I would probably mark it down to a D plus. I mean, they just let too much talent go. I mean, that was just really bad. They made their team worse.
Yeah. That Joe Mixon trade, it kind of threw me off. Was not expecting it. Chidobe Awuzie, that was another big loss. And they've picked up some good players, but I almost feel like they've lost more. And like you said, I'm not 100% sure T. Higgins is going to come back. Mike Gesicki, he's a good, consistent guy. He was originally at the Dolphins, and then he went up and had a stint with the Patriots, I believe. And he didn't really produce there, but when you have piss poor quarterback play like the Patriots have the past 2 seasons, what are you going to do? Zach Moss, I mean, he's not a bad running back per se, but he's not like one of those big names like I would think of when I think of Joe Mixon. That's not saying Joe Mixon's a top 5 back or anything, but Joe Mixon was consistent. They re-signed Drew Sample. They re-signed. They signed back Von Bell, Geno Stone, stuff like that. But I don't know. I just feel like their losses kind of outweigh their pickups, at least this season. I feel like their biggest improvement was definitely with Trent Brown on the offensive line.
So you kind of feeling grade wise?
Grade wise, I think I'm gonna have to go with a. Are we doing C pluses?
No, we'll just do C's. C's like.
Okay, then I think I'm gonna go with a C on this one.
You know, I think I kind of agree. The reason why I'd be more inclined to say like a C plus or like a B minus type deal. Obviously, we're not doing C plus or C minus, but if I lean a little bit more to B minus right now with theoretically T Higgins like in this 1 year deal, is because their secondary, Geno Stone and Von Bell, those are both good pickups. They're going to help that secondary a lot, which again was a weak point for the Bengals. Their offensive line at least didn't get worse. If anything, it probably got better. It's just that now their weapons and productions are going to get worse. So I'm inclined to say C is a pretty fair grade. They got worse in a couple areas, but they got better in a couple areas. Even though I kind of worry with the coaching, the ways they got better, I don't know if it goes core lines with the coaching. So I think C is a fair grade. Moving on to the Browns, a lot of big lists here. I actually don't exactly know who the Browns all gained and lost here, but on screen will be who they lost, which I don't see any big. Marquise Goodwin, I guess, kind of. Jordan Elliott's. I don't see any like big names for the losses here, but gains, they have a lot of gains. There's a lot to take in here. Jerry Jeudy, of course, was one of the bigger names they acquired. Which take that as you will. That's a one that people either will defend or not care about. Darius Smith is also a good pickup. Other than that, really feels like just a lot of names. What do y'all kind of gather from this?
You want to go?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely added some depth and talent to the defensive side of the ball. That was really good. They definitely had minimal loss. And then on the offensive side, Jerry Jeudy, I mean, gotta love the guy. Played for the favorite team and all, but he's just been kind of an average receiver at best in the NFL. Not exactly a huge pickup. Not exactly a fan of it. Not necessarily a hater of it. It's another weapon.
It was only
Possible
56 though.
could be some use.
I like that for the Browns. It was very cheap for them. 56.
Jamison Tyler Huntley. I think that's a solid couple of backups right there. I think. I mean, I love Jameis. I like Huntley. And then Deontay Foreman and Hines. That is great. Depth to the RB room. Hines is a great speedy guy. Foreman is your nice bowling ball. I think that would be a great tandem if Chubb isn't ready to start the season. I'm not sure if he is going to be 100% or not, but even if he's not, I would not be too worried about that room.
I agree. Like you said, with Jameis Winston, Tyler Huntley, good backups. Same thing with Deontay Foreman and Nyheim Hines. Jerry Jeudy's a good pickup for what they gave away, just a 5th and a 6th round pick. And they're paying him quite a bit, but and then you got some other names. Their defense is honestly probably more impressive signings than their offense, with Quinton Jefferson, Jordan Hicks, Rodney McLeod. Big names like that. I feel like this will be a good grade because, they lost some guys, but they didn't really lose any big names compared to the big names they picked up.
I feel like they only got better. I'm thinking B plus or B minus right now because B
That's
minus.
what I'm going B plus.
I'm going to go B minus just because a lot of the defensive talent is kind of, they retained their depth. They didn't necessarily bring it in. They brought in Smith, which was great, but I'm probably going to give it a B minus just because, good job you kept your team together and you added some good pieces there. So,
Yeah, just solid. Browns are going to be competing again, and now the quarterback position really is the question mark there for him. So we'll see how it pans out for him. Oh gosh, yeah, I forgot this is a great. Good to talk about the Steelers.
automatic F. They got rid of Kenny.
Yeah, let's start off. I'll start this one off for the. I won't go through the whole list. I'm just gonna go about the quarterback position. So they got Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. that's something. It's man. I feel like they should not have given up on Kenny Pickett. I don't know. I feel like there's some talent there, but I get it. But it's just weird how I guess you got Russell Wilson because you're hoping to win now, but you also got rid of Kenny Pickett basically for Justin Fields is kind of essentially what you're doing. Hopefully getting some, who would benefit from Russell Wilson's expertise more? Justin Fields, Kenny Pickett? I don't know. That just feels like a weird thing to me. I'm not going to dock Justin Fields or Kenny Pickett thing totally, but it just feels weird. Russell Wilson, I don't know if that offense is ready to win. I just don't. Your defense for the Steelers, I get Kenny Pickett wasn't great, but is that offense even ready? I guess you got Cordero Patterson with the new kickoff rules, which will be better. You got Van Jefferson, who's just good, I guess. He'll be a good third.
All that matters is go 9-8.
That's true. Nothing here wows me. And if we look at their defense, their defense just looks like it just went stagnant. Let's see who they lost. I don't know exactly on defense who they lost. They really didn't lose anybody on defense, really. They lost Deontay Johnson, so actually Van Jefferson would be number 2 now. They didn't get much worse or anything. They just made some weird deals here, and this makes me feel weird about the B minus I give the Browns because I feel like it's almost what the Steelers are about almost. So I don't know. What are y'all's thoughts? I don't know. I don't know about the Russell Wilson thing, but I don't think they're ready to win. I think it's a weird thing. But
I think this is almost the definition of a C. They kind of remain the same team in my opinion. They picked up a lot of sleepers like Van Jefferson. That will end up panning out well. Quez Watkins is a good deep threat. Patrick Queen is a really solid guy on the linebacking core. Dante Jackson, another good one. I don't like how they let certain players go. I mean, I get Patrick Peterson was getting a little older, but I still really liked him. They let Levi Wallace go. I thought that he was a great depth guy, and you kind of just threw that out the window. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not sure about it. I thought Quan Alexander was a really good linebacker, and of course Deontay Johnson going away. I mean, you almost made your team worse. The only thing that you did was gave yourself a better quarterback.
I mean, their defense looks slightly better. They really didn't lose anybody.
As far as they lost, I'll start off with the defense because I think that's their biggest loss, kind of. Armon Watts, Quan Alexander, Patrick Peterson. Like you said, Patrick Peterson was getting old, but he was still consistent. Levi Wallace, a good depth guy. They did pick up Patrick Queen and Dante Jackson, but I feel like it's the only good pickups on the defensive side. So I feel like they lost on the defense. Now, as far as offense, I see this as a win. They completely reshuffled the quarterback room, getting rid of Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Trubisky for Kyle Allen, Justin Fields, and Russell Wilson. And then they signed a consistent guy who's been with the Rams the past few years, and Van Jefferson. Cordero Patterson, who, you can play him at pretty much any position on the field, and he finds a way to make it work. And they picked up Quez Watkins. So I think they won on the offense, lost on the defense. They did lose Allen Robinson and Deontay Johnson, which, those are some pretty, big name losses, but they kind of reset themselves with those wide receiver 2 and 3 guys. And then they reset themselves with quarterbacks. So I think you're right, Ben. I think that's pretty much the definition of a C.
Yeah, I think I'll finalize and say C as well. I think it's fair. I don't know. Just there's nothing exciting except for I guess the Russell Wilson's a different thing. Plus they're paying him no money. Thank you Broncos for doing that. Either way, so that's the AFC North. Let's see. We can go right into the NFC North. All right, we'll go right into the NFC North. So we'll make this like a cardinal direction video here for taking on the North and East, South, West, and all that good stuff, and talking about each of the teams. NFC North, though, also has a lot of divisional change-ups here. So we'll kind of see how this kind of ends up being for them. But first up, we have the Chicago Bears. Probably should also go down here for the free agency losses for the Bears. But they're a team that's actually quite interesting, especially since if you take into account they have the first overall pick still. This could be good, but it's also a lot of question marks. I've been starting off a lot of these. One of y'all want to take off this time?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I really like this offseason. You're bringing in some really experienced guys like Kevin Byard, Keenan Allen, some good leaders for the team that bring in a good bit of talent. I like the Dante Pettis pick. I like how they chose to keep him, They could have let him walk, but I think he does bring some value. I think DeAndre Swift is a great signing. I like Jalen Johnson getting re-signed on a good deal. All of it is just really good. And they didn't really lose too much. They didn't add any stars necessarily, but they didn't just lose a whole lot. I mean, Mercedes Lewis, Robert Tunyon, Mooney, Nathan Peterman. I mean,
No, not Nathan Peterman.
Eddie Jackson, I would say, might be. At one time, he was a really big contributor, but he kind of fell off a little bit later into his career. But I mean, overall, I think this is pretty good. I would probably give it a B plus.
You know, I think this has got to be an F just because they lost Nathan Peterman. No, I'm just kidding. Tennessee guy right there. But yeah, Justin Fields, they decided to move on from him, which honestly I wasn't expecting them to do. I know a lot of people were, but I thought they would stick with him for just one more year. But I get it when you get the first round or when you get the first overall pick, and there's a guy with a big name like Caleb Williams coming out of college. You're gonna do what you think's right. They lost Deontay Foreman, Darnell Mooney, Equiminius St. Brown. And then another big name was Eddie Jackson. I think that's their biggest loss on defense, but that's only one secondary guy. And then as far as they picked up, like we were talking about, DeAndre Swift, which I think is a pretty good pickup to replace their running back room that they lost. Keenan Allen's a big pickup. They kind of got some new offensive linemen in there, a good backup tight end. Maybe he might even start there. And Gerald Everett, who's been pretty good at the, I believe it was the Chargers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they picked up Jalen Johnson and Kevin Byard, which is two huge pickups in their secondary to replace that Eddie Jackson. So honestly, I don't think this is bad. Now, do I think they'll make the playoffs next year with a rookie quarterback and this, kind of rebuilt Bears roster? Probably not. But give it 2 or 3 years, and they might make a shot at it. I kind of got to rate this one at least a B minus, maybe even a B plus. I think I'm going to go B plus because they did revamp that offensive line. Got a big wide receiver in Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift. They're getting their first round pick, and then they got 2 amazing guys as secondary. So I think I'm going to give this a B plus.
I think I agree with all of you. I think as I'm looking at this and digesting what you're saying, I mean, across the board, the Bears got better. I mean, the only thing you could arguably say is quarterback because they have an unproven quarterback versus Justin Fields. But like the only thing I can kind of say is that their depth is kind of hurting now, because I think they lost a lot of good, solid players, sure, and we're not sure. I don't know. I'm not too sure about some of these other guys depth wise. But I mean, their offensive line got better. Their secondary got better. Their defensive line at least didn't get worse from the looks of it. Their weapons at least were the same. I'd say Keenan Allen helps that a lot. Plus also having the pick potential in the draft. I think they did well. I love DeAndre Swift. I know a lot of people actually don't like DeAndre Swift, and I've been seeing a lot of people hate on that pick. That's their now one running back. Because I don't think because Foreman was their former running back, right? Yeah, Foreman. So I personally love the Bears in their offseason. So I'm giving them a B plus pretty easily, especially with the idea of them having the number 1 overall pick, and they're going to be able to fill a pretty big hole. So I like the Bears here. The Bears, I think they actually could be a low-key contender for that division. If Caleb Williams is as everybody pans out to be, they could be pretty good, especially with struggling Vikings. The Lions and Packers are kind of in this also weird stage where they're doing really good. They're fighting it out, so maybe the Bears pick up a couple wins. Who knows? But yeah, I give them a B+. Moving on to the Lions. You know, kind of just initially, I know a little bit about the Lions ones here. This didn't really do much. You know, they lost a decent bit, especially depth-wise. Maybe didn't lose anybody like C.J. Gardner-Johnson's probably the biggest names. Aquara, I guess, retired. Nobody like big, but they also didn't really like wow anybody. Like DJ Reader probably was one of the bigger signings for me, at least in terms of name value. I'm kind of leaning at like a D+, just because this is a team that made the conference championship, who had the rosters really good. They didn't lose really much. Like they lost a couple of things here and there, but they really didn't do a whole lot either. Initially, I'm gonna think D+, but I kind of want to hear what y'all say, because this might just be a C for me too. I hate giving teams C's consistently, but this was just not a good free agency for the Lions, considering where they are or were.
Well, I mean, I think it's a C as well. Or, well, I guess you hadn't jumped to it yet, but I mean, I definitely think it is, just because you're not really getting much better. You're not really getting any worse. I mean, I think it's good that they got Reader and DPJ, kept him around. But other than that, I mean, there's just not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. You know, they retained a lot of their team that they felt like they needed, and brought in a little bit more depth. And that's all you can really ask for from a conference championship team.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, they lost, big names like C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Cameron Sutton. They lost them to an already like dwindled secondary that was the worst part of their team last year. They lost Jonah Jackson too, which is, I wouldn't say a big loss, but I mean it's not taken lightly. But as far as their pickups go, they replaced the Josh Reynolds loss with Donovan Peoples-Jones. They re-signed Graham Glasgow. They picked up Marcus Davenport and DJ Reader. Re-signed Jalen Reeves-Maven, the Tennessee man. And one thing I think really hurts them is they lost, C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Cameron Sutton, which I would argue was two of their better DBs last year, and they replaced them with an aging Carlton Davis and an aging Emmanuel Mosley. So I just feel like their cornerback position is not getting any better, but maybe they'll draft DBs, which is probably what they need to do. But other than that, yeah, I'm gonna stick with a C on this one.
Yeah, I guess it's fair. I guess I just kind of look at it like I think they got slightly worse, like marginally worse, but like I guess that's not worth a D+, like taking them from a C to a D+. So I'll give them a C as well. I think that's a fair assessment there. Also, just a little personal thing. Oh, Teddy Two Gloves. I get it. But man, retired. Fly high. Not literally, but you know what I'm talking about. Love Teddy Two Gloves. Packers are next. Moving on. Of course, I think this is also. I think there's a lot of splash value when it comes to the Packers, and of course, the biggest names here losing are David Bakhtiari, but also losing Aaron Jones and replacing him with Josh Jacobs, which I don't know how I feel. I'm kind of been mixed about that. I'm gonna, in my mind, I'm counting it as pretty much a even transfer because I like Aaron Jones. Maybe Josh Jacobs is a slight upgrade just because he's slightly younger, right? I think Aaron Jones is like 28 versus Josh Jacobs 26. Something along those lines.
It's just crazy because I feel like Josh Jacobs has been in the league forever.
I think he's had just a couple big years where it feels like he just felt like he's been here for a while, it feels like. Xavier McKinney signing a 4-year deal. That's also a pretty big one for them. And again, other than the David Bakhtiari, who again is aging, still one of the best O-linemen, but I mean, he is aging, I get it. They didn't lose really anybody. Again, I kind of count the Aaron Jones thing as a even loss and David Bakhtiari as another big loss. But other than that, like, it almost feels like a C as well. It feels weird saying that, but I guess I might lean me B- just because I feel like they did get a slightly better for where they needed to. But yeah, but what's your? I'm gonna go B- right now. B minus.
Yeah, I think I could probably agree with that. I think they definitely improved at the running back position. Um, it's definitely going to be more of a power run type of offense now with AJ Dillon and Josh.
Mm.
Um, and I'm not as big on the hating the Bakhtiari move. I get that he's great, but I mean, you can only go through so many injuries, and I mean, it's bound to happen again.
Um, yeah, they did lose or they lost Aaron Jones and picked up Josh Jacobs, which, like you said, is an even trade. Maybe I can give them a slight edge. They lost Bakatari. Uh, but other than that, I mean, they picked up Xavier McKinney and go back to Josh Jacobs, and they took Greg Joseph from Minnesota, um, who's been a pretty consistent kicker. Um, I think I'm gonna give them a B minus. It's either B minus or C. I hate keep giving teams C's because it just feels lazy. But I mean, that's what this is. I mean, they've got slightly better in some places, slightly worse than the others, and I feel like that kind of evens out. So I guess I'm gonna have to with a C.
Right, yeah, the Packers just feel like I don't know, just a couple splashy teams, a little splashy of a team. Now, speaking of Aaron Jones going somewhere, we have the Minnesota Vikings up next. This is a lot to unpack because feels like one of those things where they did a lot, but they also didn't do a lot because they lost a lot. Immediately, I mean, I'm going to put them in the D minus area because if you just look at that list of people they lost, Daniel Hunter, Kirk Cousins, Alexander Madison. I don't know why I said Alexander Madison. He's just a name I recognize. Dalton Reisner, I think, is a decent loss. Depth-wise, it feels like they got worse. Granted, they signed a lot of people, but it feels like a lot of names. I see Andrew Van Ginkel, Jonathan Greenard, okay, Grenard, whatever you say it. Shaquille Griffin, okay. There's some names down here, so maybe D minus is a little aggressive, but I think that quarterback position hurts you immensely with Kirk Cousins going away.
Dude, this is bad, dude. This is bad. This is D plus. This is not good.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
I'm not saving them from F is Aaron Jones.
D minus is what
like,
I felt was a little aggressive.
This is awful. Q. Why would you want to keep Q? He might be one of the worst linemen in the league. And then you go on the other side of the line and sign the actual worst one in Jerry Tillery. And it's just why? Why do you want these people? You went out and there's just no reason for this. Absolutely not. There's none at all. And they let Kirk go. Why would you let him go? Now you're really about to know how this feels because you're going to draft J.J. McCarthy and it's going to be horrible.
Kirk hurts a lot. Like, these aren't easy names for them. Like, to lose.
This is not a good offseason at all.
No, it's not.
For
I'm
them.
just debating whether it's like D plus or D minus type deal. I'm kind of leaning D minus. I'll be honest with you. That's kind of what my heart's telling me.
I'm honestly gonna go with a D minus as well. Aaron Jones, I mean, yeah, he's a good back. You got him for a pretty cheap deal, but the fact is you signed Sam Darnold to a 1-year contract and gave him way more money than he was deserved, and then signed all these. I mean, I don't want to say bums because they're all a lot better than me, but in relation to the NFL, they're all kind of bums, and the amount of talent you lost, not even close to getting that back. And Alexander Madison, KJ Osborne, gotta throw Josh Dobbs in there because Tennessee guy, Kirk Cousins, Jordan Hicks, even with the kicker and Greg Joseph, like you just lost so much to gain so little. Like they know they're in rebuild. But when you're in rebuild, you got to get rid of some of your stars and not let them walk in free agency like they did with Kirk Cousins. And that's why I think they should really get rid of Justin Jefferson, get draft picks, and maybe a young player from him. Justin Jefferson's a young guy, but he probably doesn't want to stay at the Minnesota Vikings in the middle of rebuilding that's going to take who knows how long. So I got to go with a D minus on this one. This is piss poor.
I think they're gonna pay Justin Jefferson a bag, though. I think they're gonna I mean, they have to, but I mean, they're going to pay him a bag. I'm going to go D- pretty solidly now, because now I'm looking at this. I mean, arguably the areas they needed to get better were offensive line and secondary. It feels kind of like a theme for this episode, is that a lot of teams need to get better in the secondary, and they didn't. They added players to other places that they didn't need. I guess they had to replace on the edge technically, or linebackers, whatever. But they really didn't even do that when you're really looking at the names. Sure, don't get me wrong. I like some of the names. I really do. I like Andrew Van Ginkel. I like Grenard. I like Shaquille Griffin. But, when you put it in perspective, they lost Kirk Cousins, who, again, you can't say he's like the most star-studded quarterback, but he's going to he got you somewhere like a couple of years ago, or a year ago, I guess now. D- pretty solidly, because you didn't do anything to get better. You just solidified where your position was and got worse in other areas. So yeah, D-. And that's it. Wow, I was about to say that was a quick one there. So there was a lot of good and a lot of bad. We started really good, and all of a sudden we went right into the crap of it all with the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, no kidding.
But if you guys enjoy this episode of kind of us grading these free agency tracking, we plan on doing this for all the cardinal directions for all the teams. So stay tuned for those videos. Ben and Trayton will be around. They're going to be kicking it up with me for these next few episodes. We're going to be covering the draft. We'll be streaming the first day of the draft as well. We'll do something fun for all that. So stay tuned for all that good stuff, guys. StraightA is out of here. See you guys later.